Okay, let's jump right in. Welcome to this high-yield exam review masterclass. Today's explainer is all about synthesizing the core tenets of systemic counseling. If you're a student or maybe a new practitioner gearing up to evaluate families through multiple systemic lenses, well, grab your notepad because you're in exactly the right place. We're going to be pulling our absolute best cheat codes today, straight from James Robert Bitter's foundational textbook, Theory and Practice of Couples and Family Counseling. And to make this super practical, because nobody wants to just memorize abstract theories, we're framing this entire review around his standardized clinical case. It's really the best way to anchor these concepts in the real world.
Here's a quick look at your syllabus for today's session. We'll start by setting the PACE framework, meet the Quest family, compare the theoretical models, navigate multicultural dimensions, and then finish up with the practitioner's internal work. All right, Section 1, setting the PACE framework. Let's look at the counselor's internal posture.
You've really got to anchor this acronym in your memory because it is a phenomenal foundation for your clinical mindset. PACE stands for Purpose, Awareness, Contact, and Experience. Purpose draws on Adlerian direction and meaning. Awareness brings in that Gestalt present focus. Contact, also from Gestalt, is all about authentic connection and engagement. And finally, experience is rooted in Virginia Satir's enactments. The beauty of PACE is that it gives you just enough structure to support your creativity without, boxing you in. It's essentially your internal operating system as a clinician.
This quote, straight from the text, absolutely nails it. Paying attention to purpose, awareness, contact, and experience brings a useful pace to human engagement. It sounds simple, right? But honestly, just being fully present, paced, and aware, that alone is a massive catalyst for movement in therapy. It stops you from rushing in to just fix things right off the bat. Moving on to Section 2. Let's meet the Quest family, our standardized case. So, the Quests. They're a blended family featuring two children from an entirely different culture. Bitter actually created them as a conglomerate of real clients to literally throw a multitude of complex, blended dynamics at you. They are the ultimate test case for your exam prep and for your future clinical practice.
So just imagine for a second, the Quest family walks into your office today. How would you establish contact? Which systemic lens would you apply first to give that session purpose? As a student, you have to actively ask yourself, am I looking for structural hierarchy here? Am I tracing intergenerational patterns? Or am I going to challenge their dominant cultural narrative? Keep the quests right in the front of your mind as we dive into these theoretical options.
Okay, Section 3, comparing theoretical models. It's time to put on some different clinical glasses. Looking at this map, it's so fascinating to trace the evolution of family practice. You can literally follow the lineage. We start with the early object relations pioneers over on the left, move through that postmodern transition in the middle with models like solution-focused therapy, and then land all the way over on the right with modern evidence-based practices like emotionally focused therapy. Every single box you see represents a totally different way to conceptualize what the Quest family is going through.
Here is a major distinction you absolutely need to know for the exam: the shift from modernist to postmodern models. Modernist models, they're searching for the essence of a family process. They want to fix functional structure and hierarchy. Postmodern models, totally different. They believe that knowing a family depends heavily on the observer. They want to challenge dominant cultural stories and co-create brand new narratives. So if you see this on the test, remember, a structural modernist is going to try to fix the Quentz's broken family hierarchy. A postmodernist is going to sit down with them and collaboratively reauthor a totally new, empowering blended family story.
This high-yield table is gold. It contrasts exactly how three distinct schools of thought conceptualize their clinical goals for the Quests. A structural therapist, following Minuchin, wants to establish really clear boundaries, like who's the parent, who's the child. A human validation practitioner, like Satir, is aiming to build self-esteem and congruent communication. And a narrative therapist, like White or Epstein, wants to externalize the problem, literally separating the Quests from their problem-saturated stories. You definitely want to memorize these distinctions, for sure. Let's transition to Section 4, Navigating Multicultural Dimensions. We need to look at the context of the Quests. Families don't exist in a vacuum, right? They absorb the dominant stories of society. Now, early family counseling often completely ignored oppression based on class, race, and gender. But today, we know that the so-called standard U.S. nuclear family definition is basically a myth. Feminist models specifically challenge the constriction of patriarchy within these systems. So the big takeaway here is that systemic practitioners have to evaluate how societal oppression, race, and gender roles dynamically impact the Quest counseling outcomes. Remember, they have two kids from a completely different cultural background.
We have to actively appreciate that diversity, not just kind of, tolerate it.
As the source material so powerfully puts it, before we can know the richness and diversity of other families, we must come to know our own heritage. You literally cannot truly understand the diversity of the Quest family until you first deeply investigate the cultural experiences of your very own family of origin.
Which brings us perfectly to our final section, the self as instrument. This is all about the practitioner's internal work.
We absolutely have to talk about the differentiated self. This is a foundational concept from Murray Bowen. It's defined as the ability to maintain a clear sense of self while remaining emotionally connected, basically avoiding being pulled into a family's emotional reactivity. I love to think of it like being a thermostat rather than a thermometer. You maintain your sense of self and you set the temperature in the room, instead of just reacting to the family's emotional heat. This is exactly where most practitioners get stuck. Without a differentiated self, you risk working out your own unexamined family issues on your poor clients.
To stop that kind of countertransference in its tracks, Virginia Satir developed this brilliant step-by-step centering exercise. First, you close your eyes to focus internally. Second, pay attention to your natural breathing. Third, let any pictures from your past just naturally come onto your mind's screen. Fourth, clear your introjections and projections, meaning let go of the emotional baggage you might be putting on the clients. And finally, open your eyes and truly take a picture of the family sitting right in front of you. It's such a profound way to make sure you're meeting the actual family in the room, not just a projection of your own past.
While doing this exercise, Satir would ask this incredible reflective question: whose picture is coming forward in your mind right now? It forces you, the counselor, to identify exactly who from your past is coloring your current clinical view. If you walk into a session with the Questison and immediately feel defensive, well, who are you actually reacting to?
Let's look at the qualities of a truly effective practitioner. Presence is hands down the absolute most important quality, bringing all your senses into the room with genuine interest. You also need acceptance, caring, the courage to take risks, adaptability to the natural ebbs and flows of change, and teleological listening. Teleological listening just means focusing on the family's intended futures. Now notice how these qualities perfectly mirror the purpose, awareness, contact, and experience of the PACE framework we started with. At the end of the day, no technique surpasses these personal qualities. Your grounded, fascinating presence is the ultimate antidote to a family's chaotic patterns.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to test your own clinical readiness. When you face your very first real family system, what unexamined issues from your own family of origin are going to walk right into that room with you? Take some time to reflect on that. Keep applying the PACE framework, and you will be well on your way to mastering these systemic models. Good luck studying.